Hey everybody, it is Trags, Mike Petralia, back with the post-bye edition of the Jungle Roar podcast, brought to you as always by our great friends at Game Time, the Game Time app that is, and Prize Picks, and our great people at CLNS Media. My pleasure to welcome back to the podcast this week, Jay Morrison. He does great work now for BengalsTalk.com, covering all things Cincinnati Bengals and the NFL. Jay, how was your bye week?
Oh, it was wonderful. Like any vacation, it goes way too fast, but it was very relaxing. Got some things done around the house I needed to get done. And like any vacation, it's good to be back. You feel like you're
Yes.
kind of out of sync for a while, and it's nice to have the break, but it's good to get back to the grind.
I will tell you, it was good to get back to the grind Monday, but it took me a little bit. It's that returning to the stadium. It's getting into the flow of digging for stories, writing stories. But once you talk to the players in that locker room, I don't know, it gets my blood going, especially when you hear the little patter of ping pong balls in the Bengals locker room. What did you think of the ping pong tables returning? I thought your question of Zach was spot on as to why the ping pong tables are back in the locker room.
Yeah, I mean, so for people that don't know, the Bengals had some meetings in the morning. They had a practice from 1:45 to 2:45, and they were free to go after that. The locker room was open to us from 2:45 to 3:30. Guys were still in there. They were taking their time getting ready to go home. At 3:30, we go in for Zach, and there's still more than a dozen at least guys in the locker room.
It certainly sounded
Spirited,
like that.
yeah,
Yes.
spirited games of ping pong, and it's just the married guys probably get out of there a little quicker and get home to their kids, but the younger guys are in there bonding and playing ping pong, and it cracks me up the way people think that this is some sort of panacea and this is going to solve everything. It's not what it is. It's bringing some more life to a locker room that had felt almost like a morgue. And number one, you don't want that anyhow. Number two, you don't want that vibe with the Hard Knocks cameras there. So
Correct.
they wanted to show that a little bit, and it does have that bonding effect. You have guys, you have offensive linemen playing wide receivers and linebackers playing any other, a kicker, for instance, Evan McPherson. You have guys that don't typically hang out coming together over a central area, even if it is something as silly as ping pong. It is meaningful, and I don't know. I asked around a few times, and was this something the players lobbied for? Or was it just a surprise? Never really got a clear answer on that. But the clear answer is they are happy to have it back. It's something that's been there for the last 3 years. They took it out when they redesigned the locker room. Don't know where it was all this time, but both tables are back in the locker room now.
They look refurbished, or in some cases brand new. There are two of them, one on each side of the center walkway as you enter the locker room, at least from the field. I will tell you, I think Trenton Irwin has not lost anything off of his game. Trenton Irwin was playing Trey Hill, I believe it was. That was a competitive game. That was the most competitive game I saw. That was on the singles table, and on the doubles table there were a lot of other players playing. I can't remember. Jamar Chase was before Trenton Irwin and Trey Hill were playing. I know Jamar Chase was there playing. So I don't know. It adds energy, and to me, this is all about energy. And the Wednesday before the Charger game, Jay, you and I were out there along with several other beat reporters covering the Bengals, and we all noticed to a single person, there was no energy at practice on the practice field. And sometimes that can mean nothing. But to me, with a then 4-6 team, for there to be no energy with the playoffs, with their season on the line and at stake, I don't know, that felt kind of damning, at least a little bit to me.
Yeah, and it did perk up a little bit the days after that. I can't remember if I asked Zach about it or if I asked Pitch or Lou as well. Those all run together, but I asked about that, and they kind of downplayed it. Said no, it was a typical Wednesday. They were doing special teams while we were out there, so it's not typically a high energy part of practice anyhow. But it was noticeable the music wasn't on. That's always, the music is usually going, and it gives a little bit more of a vibe to it. And You mentioned Jamar Chase. I think he kicked Jermaine Burton off the table because when they came in, it was Jermaine Burton and Troy Walters, the wide receivers coach, had the first game, and I tweeted it out because Jermaine Burton was holding his paddle like the professional, Asian players do
I think like holding it between
upside down
and in between his middle finger and his ring finger.
Yeah, that's not an accident. So he's played a lot of ping pong, you could tell, but he only played a couple points, and then it was Jamar. So I think Jamar pulled rank and kicked him off of that table. And there's always been an A table and a B table, so there is a kind of a hierarchy to ping pong. But yeah, it's a silly thing, but at the same time, it does have some meaningful undertones, and anything they can do to spark this team is going to be welcomed.
Yeah, okay. Enough of the ping pong talk. I think Bengal fans want to know what is going to make. Yeah, well, some are, but I think some are just wondering, when is this team going to finish out a game, Jay? What is this the week against the Pittsburgh Steelers where they finally make a key play, a clutch play down the stretch and beat the Steelers? The Browns were able to do it. The Browns blew whatever. I think they had a 14 or a 10-point lead against the Steelers. They had a double-digit lead against the Steelers. They blew that lead. The Steelers came back and took the lead, and then the Browns were able to finish them off with a Nick Chubb touchdown run in the snow globe game, as it is now come to be called, up in Cleveland. The Bengal fans are like, well, we're just as talented. We should be a lot more talented, especially offensively, than Cleveland. What do the Bengals need to do to get on the right side of the ledger against Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. The Browns finished that game, but the Browns are also a devil may care attitude in that game. They're out of it. They're just playing for pride. They don't have that pressure. The Bengals kind of have this pressure sitting on their shoulders of, if we lose, it's over. And that wasn't the case against the Chargers, because obviously it's not over, but it kind of felt like a playoff game, a playoff run already. And it just feels like, kind of like Zach always talks about early, just getting that first down and getting the rhythm. And if they could just finish one of these games late and get that game-winning score at the end of the game, hold on, that could really kind of spark a little bit of a snowball effect. And X's and O's wise, I don't know what they need to do to finish these games. Joe Burrow's been really good at times, but it does seem, that they settle too much for field goals in these situations. Evan McPherson obviously missed the 2 field goals in the final 8 minutes. It's not like they weren't playing for the field goal at that point, like they were against Baltimore in week 5. But it seems like they need to be more in attack mode, especially knowing what this defense is and how susceptible it is to turning around and giving up a go-ahead touchdown to the other team. And I think that's a big part of it, is this defense either needs a huge sack or a huge turnover, something in a fourth quarter to stop a drive and stop this entire slide.
Mike Petralia, Trags here, host of the Jungle Roar and Code Reds podcast on CLNS Media. Want to take time out to tell you about a great ticket app called Game Time. Now, recently, a friend of mine and I were out in LA covering the Bengals and Chargers, and the day before, USC was playing at home against Nebraska. I'd never seen a game at the LA Coliseum. It was on my bucket list, so we said to each other, how do we get tickets? Well, easy enough. We open up the Game Time app on my phone and found 2 great tickets at great prices. Later that night, it turned out we wanted to take in a show in LA. What did we do for the concert? Well, again, pretty easy. Open up the Game Time app and we found great prices for the seats we were looking for and made the show as well. Now, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks, making getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time has curated deals to make it easier to find the best price on great seats, seat views before you buy, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, and job loss protection. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Well, I was talking to Geno Stone about this, and I know you were in the locker room talking to Geno, talking to Josh Newton. We'll get to Josh Newton in a little bit because you had a nice story on him on BengalsTalk.com. But I asked Geno, obviously you're aware that you had 7 interceptions last year. You led the NFL in that category. And where are the turnovers this year? Not only for you, but the defense in general. You guys have not come up with a big turnover to really switch the momentum in some of these key games. And he said, yeah, we are very well aware of that. We know that if we can generate more turnovers, punch the ball free. We're trying, but we're just not generating them. What's your reaction to that?
Well, turnovers are a result of pressure, and the Bengals just aren't getting any pressure. You know, outside of Trey Hendrickson, nobody's putting pressure on the quarterback and rushing throws or deflecting throws or strip sacking the quarterback. And yeah, you're right. You could punch the ball out, and they're really good at that. I mean, Jermaine Pratt, maybe the best in the league at that punch to get it out, but it just hasn't been there for whatever reason. And part of that is that teams are playing with the lead, and when they're playing from behind and kind of pressing and then pressing because you're getting pressure on the quarterback, that's where just the slightest mistake can lead to a turnover. And you've just had the no pun, a turnover on this defense with from Dax Hill to DJ Turner, now Josh Newton, and then Von Bell is kind of ceding spots to Jordan Battle, and they've lamented it all season. No consistency back there in terms of the quality of play, but then there's also been no consistency in terms of the actual personnel. So I think that just all leads into it. And again, it's one of those things where you just get 1 or 2 in key spots, and it really can just gain momentum.
Well, I think that Geno Stone still has potential for this defense to be a playmaker, but he can't do it all on his own. That has been the impression I've gotten from watching him the last several weeks, that he is not going to be the speedster to come over. He's not going to be a Kyle Hamilton type for the Baltimore Ravens. He's a totally different type of safety in that secondary, but I still think he can contribute quite a bit. He admitted to me yesterday on Monday that there were a couple of occasions during that Charger game where he was in position to make the pick. He wasn't able to make the pick or cause a turnover. And, he's got to be there to help now help the cornerbacks. One is a very young player in Josh Newton, and the other is Cam Taylor-Britt. And Cam Taylor-Britt right now is in a crisis of confidence. I think we all know that. He is a guy that probably has to have either a critical pass breakup or 2, or an interception that turns the momentum of a game. To me, this is what started the whole downward trend for Cam Taylor-Britt, that interception in Kansas City, where I think he got away from some of his mechanics. And I know you and others have kind of, suggested that is where some of his bad habits began, is with that one acrobatic interception. Maybe an interception now can get him back into the groove.
Yeah, or like you said, just a pass breakup or 2, or maybe he gets the deflection and the ball goes to Geno Stone, or it goes to somebody else, and just any kind of big play like that. How many times have you heard cornerbacks talk about when they get burned? You just got to forget about it and go on to the next play. Well, it's the same thing when you make a incredible highlight reel interception, and he didn't do that. It felt like he started chasing those and wanting to do those, and part of it was, there was kind of this push to, he had played well the last couple of years, and he's such a dynamic personality, and there was this whole thing of, okay, we're going to get this guy's name out there because that's how you make Pro Bowls. Yes, you have to play well on the field, but you have to be known league wide, and you need to have your personality out there. Just maybe all of that was just too much that it knocked him off the rails. The Carolina game when he got benched, it was obvious he was peeking into the backfield. He was trying to jump routes. He wasn't playing disciplined cornerback. Promised Lou it would never happen again, and he's kind of slipped back into those bad habits. And the thing is, we've seen it before. It's not as though he's this young guy trying to figure it out, and you're saying, "Oh, can he ever be a dude in this league?" We've seen him be a dude. We've seen him be a really quality cornerback who looked like he was on the rise to be something really special. So it's there, and it's just a matter of getting him back on track. Maybe the bye week, it's such a cliche, comes at a perfect time. Maybe for Cam, that is the case. And you're right. It could be a pick, a big deflection on third down, just some sort of play to reinstill that confidence. And maybe it was a little bit of looking over his shoulder. He gets benched in Carolina, and maybe he's wondering, well, when's the next time they're going to pull me out of a game? And now with DJ Turner joining Dax Hill on IR, I don't think he has to worry about that anymore. It's him and Josh Newton, and something's going to have to go just drastically wrong for them to pull Cam Taylor-Britt out of another game.
Right. And another thing that Geno Stone said to me that kind of really it does apply to what you just said about Cam Taylor-Britt. The quote was, "I'm not going to go chase plays just to get the interception, just to try and get, that feather in my cap. I'm not going to do that because when you chase plays, bad things happen." And maybe that's what Cam Taylor-Britt's been doing. Maybe, he may not be speaking directly to Cam, but I think Geno Stone's message definitely applies to Cam that just play fundamental football. And that's when you're a Bengal fan and you watch the Bengals secondary, given what they had demonstrated in 21 and 22 to now, you just look at yourself and you ask yourself, what happened? Why is this defense and the secondary so much worse when, at least on the corners, a lot of the players are the same?
Yeah, well, I mean, part of it is you had the unknown. You had Dak switching positions, and then he's really coming into his own and playing well. And then he goes down. And then DJ Turner was seeming to really come on and starting to play well. Had 3 PBUs in that game against the Chargers, and he breaks his clavicle. And so I do think that's a big part of the lack of continuity. Lou talked about it so early in his career here about not wanting to rotate guys back there. There's a reason you don't want to rotate guys back there. He's kind of had to. Yeah, he's kind of had to this year, and you're seeing the negative effects of that. And maybe down the line it helps where you've got all these guys that are getting more snaps, and Jordan Battle's not just sitting on the side waiting for Von Bell's contract to run out, but it's some growing pains you have to live with. And at some point you would think it's going to flip, but it's week 13 now, and it's got to happen pretty soon.
Are you like me and wondering, boy, Xavier Howard would have been really nice, a nice extra piece to have in that secondary. I'm not saying he would be the solution to all their problems. He's in his mid-30s. He's no spring chicken, but he's someone that knows Lou, and Lou knows him, and Zach knows him as well. It just seems like it was too perfect of a move to make for them not to make it.
Yeah, because you have Vaughn, who's an incredible leader back there, but when you start losing playing time as that guy, I don't. It's not that they lose respect for you, but it just doesn't carry the same weight. And then you look at the rest of them, and they're all so young. Even Cam, he didn't start until midway through his rookie year, so he's basically been starting for 2 years. Josh Newton's a rookie. DJ Turner was in his first year as a starter. Dax Hill was in his first year as a starter at quarterback. There's just so much youth back there. And even if Xavier wasn't a guy to come in and light the world on fire with his coverage skills at his age, another veteran presence in that room would have been so valuable. And it just seems like it was a move that was there to be made. He came in. I mean, there had to have been some sort of discussion of compensation for him to even get on a plane and come in here and do a workout, and for them not to be able to come to terms with the guy. It wasn't that he didn't have a good workout. It was that they didn't offer him what he wanted, and so he walked away. And that could be a move that they regret for the rest of this season.
Hey everybody, it's Trags, Mike Petralia, host of the Jungle Roar and Code Reds podcast on CLNS Media. Want to tell you about Prize Picks, the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday each Tuesday. Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Think James Cook will get more than 60 yards next week? How about Joe Burrow passing for more than 1.5 touchdowns? And on Thanksgiving night, Tyreek Hill only needs to gain half a receiving yard for the projection to hit. If you're correct on at least one more stat projection, you can win real cash. Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this football season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going to go off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use that code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Okay, I'm going to ask a question of you, Jay Morrison, and I know you've seen enough of the Steelers. How can the Steelers do what they're doing, being 8-3 coming into this game against the Bengals? How can they be that good and the Bengals be 4-7? It's a simple question, but just your best shot. Is it attitude? Is it culture? Is it discipline? What comes to mind when you see the disparity, the gross disparity between the records of two teams who I think coming into the year, you would have anticipated the opposite of their records being the case?
Yeah, I was going to say it's a simple answer. It's 2 words. It's Mike Tomlin. That's just, you said it, culture. That it's just ingrained there. And I know people get sick of hearing it, but he's never had a losing season in all these years. There's a reason for that. They haven't had the greatest rosters, but he's just a guy that knows how to win and knows how to win with what he has. And this is a defense-driven team, and the offense has gotten a little bit of a spark from Russell Wilson, but it's still not anything that strikes fear in a defense. And this could be what the Bengals defense needs, where you get an offense that's not Justin Herbert or Lamar Jackson or even Patrick Mahomes. You're not playing these elite quarterbacks. Russell Wilson is playing fine, but he's on the back end of his career. And, again, they win a game without scoring a touchdown. So it's just the way they've built that franchise and in this particular roster, they're going to be in games. And unlike the Bengals, and unlike last week, they know how to finish. They get it done. I was watching that game Thursday night, and I tweeted because you said double-digit lead. I think Cleveland was up 12. Yes. And all of a sudden Pittsburgh's in the lead, and because stupid turnover, stupid penalty. And I said, this game is the epitome of you are what your record says you are. I mean, the Browns had no business blowing that lead. Pittsburgh had no business winning that game. And then you look up and Pittsburgh's in the lead in the fourth quarter. And I really thought that's how it was going to end. That's how a lot of Pittsburgh games end. And then Cleveland makes that great drive at the end of the game to win it. But that's what Pittsburgh's about. Keep the game close, impose your will defensively, get after the passer, and with TJ Watt and with that whole defensive line, and figure out a way to win it in the fourth quarter.
All right, we've talked a lot about the defense. One more question about the defense, and this is out of left field. But with the issues that they have had on the edge, generating pressure with the players not named Trey Hendrickson, what about Cedric Johnson? The reason I ask this is you got to get, if you're not getting it from Miles Murphy, who does serve some purpose, and you got to get Miles Murphy his reps. Obviously, Joseph Osai is Joseph Osai, but I want to find out about Cedric Johnson in these final 6 weeks, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, not a huge role, but you would like to see him get a few more snaps. I just he looks small for a defensive end, so maybe that's part of it. Maybe they're, that first year, Miles Murphy put on all that weight, and really got not bad weight, but good weight, and got bigger for this second season. And that's so much a part. We saw Zach Carter do it, and maybe he's a bad example, but there's you go from college to the NFL, and when you're in the trenches, it's a major difference from playing against college kids, even though they're older now with NIL and all that, to grown men in the NFL. And if they saw it in practice, I think we would see him in there more. And if the coaches saw it more in games and the limited snaps he's got, he would certainly earn more playing time, because they're desperate to find any kind of pass rush. So there has to be some sort of reason that they are holding him back when it's a position of need. And maybe that's it. Maybe he's just too young and raw and slight, small, whatever, however you want to phrase it.
So, okay, then that leads me to this question, Jay. Why don't they draft bigger dudes? I mean, other teams are able to plug in rookies or second-year players or undrafted rookie free agents, you name it. These other teams, like the Ravens, like the Steelers, like the Bills, are able to find guys that are younger, plug them in, and have them make impact. I have this conversation with Kelsey Conway of the Cincinnati Enquirer a lot, and she always asks me, well, where are the guys on the edge? Where are the dudes? And I'm like, well, they're trying to draft them. And right now, Jay, their draft selection process at that position has not been great, at least in terms of production.
No. And I mean, when you look at Cedric Johnson, I mean, there's a reason he was a 6th-round pick. He was number 214 overall. You're going to have a hard time finding physical specimens in the 6th round. It was a flyer. It was a shot in the dark. That's what a lot of those 6th and 7th round picks are. It was a depth kind of pick. But your point goes to Miles Murphy. I mean, yeah, they took him in the 1st round. Why are they? And he looks the part physically. Why has he not developed? And that is the bigger concern there. And they had so many other needs. They had tight end, they had defensive tackle. They needed to get another wide receiver to kind of be the Tyler Boyd / TJ or T Higgins replacement. So they had other needs to go for. If they had gone defensive end in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, whatever what it might have been, I think they would have got a guy that looked more the part. But when you're taking a flyer in the 6th round, I'm sure they loved everything about him from what they saw at the combine in terms of meeting him and loving football and all those intangibles that they really go after. And it was a guy that, yeah, maybe he doesn't fit the mold, but he's a guy that could possibly develop into something. And we're 11 games into his rookie year, and it's still a learning process.
One of the great features of BengalsTalk.com, ever since Jay Morrison started working there several weeks ago, is Stat of the J. And I love the latest one. It's up there this morning, Tuesday morning. Bengals QB Joe Burrow's December-January stats are as elite as they get. I love the headline, but I love the content even more. What went into writing this story, Jay, and tease us, if you will, with a couple of said stats?
Well, so I'm thinking that Zach touched on it in the press conference yesterday about December football, and that's when you got to be playing your best football. And I was like, they have been pretty good late in seasons. They've started slow, they've finished fast. And so I went and I looked to see since 2021 what their record is in December and January regular season games, and they're 12-5, and that's tied for the 6th best record in the league during that span. And that includes 2021 season finale when they rested all their starters. So I was like, well, Burrow didn't play in that game. I wonder Burrow didn't play last year when they kind of were middle of the pack in December. So I was like, well, I wonder what Burrow's actual record is in December and January games. He's 8-2, and so I just filtered it out to all quarterbacks that have made at least 10 starts in December and January. It's a small sample size, but 10 is decent. There's 205 quarterbacks that have started at least 10 games since 1970, since the merger. So we're going back over 50 years. He is in the top 4 in every meaningful category. Now, not talking touchdown passes, because obviously that's a volume thing. He's only made 10 stats, but percentage-wise, winning percentage, completion percentage, touchdown to interception ratio, those type of stats, yards per attempt, anything that's kind of filtered down and doesn't matter how much you played. He's there. He's first, second, third, or fourth in all of those meaningful categories, and he's ahead of Hall of Famers and the guys that are ahead of him in certain categories. One that keeps showing up is Brock Purdy, because he also has 10 starts. He's 9-1 in his 10 starts in January and December. So, things could fall off quickly for Burrow and for Purdy. But right now, where he stands, it really is amazing. And I think if you guys go read that story, you will be surprised to see where he ranks in each of those categories.
Tom Brady is 8th, but I will say that the caveat there, Jay, is he made 103 starts in December and January. He was 80-23. That's incredible. Given the volume of the starts, that he won 80 of those 103 starts.
That puts him just behind Joe Burrow in winning percentage. It's just under 80%. So yeah, that's amazing. And you see, guys like that, guys you would expect to be there are there. And so if Burrow can continue this, I mean, yes, this is only his 3rd December, because he suffered the ACL in November of his rookie year, suffered the wrist in November last year. So that's why his numbers his total games played during these crucial months are down, but he's got a shot for 6 more of them this year, and he's going to have more and more chances as the years go on. And if he can keep playing the way he has in 2021, 2022 in these months, the Bengals could make a run this year.
Well, and I will tell you another thing that really stands out to me: Brock Purdy, number 1, Lamar Jackson 2, Roger Staubach 3, then Burrow, Theismann, Patrick Mahomes, Bob Greasy, and Tom Brady. They all had complementary defenses. The Bengals right now don't. Joe Burrow doesn't have that luxury, and that's what we spent a lot of time after the Chargers game talking about, is that it feels like Joe Burrow has to carry the weight all by himself. And I think he has felt that way for a good part of this season, that the defense just isn't going to be there for me. So I'm going to have to put up a lot of points. And sometimes I think that forces Burrow to play a game that he'd probably rather not play consistently or all the time. And that leads to him taking a lot of hits.
Taking a lot of hits, yes. Holding onto the ball, waiting for plays to develop. But the surprising thing, the impressive thing there is you would think it would lead to taking a lot of chances, and it hasn't. He's been really smart with the ball, and only 4 interceptions. And so that part of it, I think, is really encouraging, where you're kind of in desperation mode in a lot of the second half of games, because you are playing from behind. And even if you're not playing from behind, if it's kind of a back and forth even game, you don't have the confidence that the defense is going to get you the stop you need. And you do have to kind of push the envelope some. And he's been able to do it within the scope of the offense. And the hits are concerning. They are starting to mount. But I've been impressed with the way that he has been able to kind of bounce off some of these hits. And he talked about it in the offseason, about how much weight he put on. He wanted to get stronger. And it wasn't just the durability factor of taking the hits and not getting hurt. It was being able to stand in the pocket. And he's got such a great presence anyhow. And we've seen legitimate, really good edge rushers and even defensive tackles come in and look like they've got him wrapped up, and he's gotten out of those and either run for a significant gain or found someone open in a scramble drill and made a huge play. So I think that's been a big jump in his game. And it's something that, if you're gonna make that a weapon, then there's gonna be the side effect too, where you're gonna get caught a couple times and you are gonna get popped. But that's the one thing in that Chargers game that I can't remember how much time was left, but that body weight penalty, he didn't seem the same after that. He's another guy where I think the bye really is going to help him, because They didn't list him with any kind of injury. Zach said he wasn't dealing with anything he was aware of, but man, that really did look like it rattled him a little bit, and I would assume made him pretty physically sore because he was on fire in that game, and I think he finished something like 4 of 14 after that hit. He missed the go ball to Jamar, which they never miss on that connection. So that's where you start worrying about, the cumulative effect, where if those kind of hits, and even though it's illegal and it draws a flag, teams might be willing to do that because they know Joe Burrow's the only one that's going to let this team win.
If the Bengals get the win on Sunday, do you see hope for a run at the end of the season?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you figure I know it's a division game, but Cleveland coming in here, that's obviously a winning game. Tennessee's playing better, but that's still a game the Bengals should go win. Monday night in Dallas, it's probably a good thing that Dallas got that big win in Washington last weekend. And
thinking
you get a team that's just going for broke and on a terrible losing streak, and that could be a bad spot to walk into. And Denver's playing a lot better. That's not the game. That's not as easy of a game as it looked like maybe when the schedule came out. Right. And then you go to Pittsburgh in the finale, and that's never easy. But I think that if they could get this win, see what else happens, the other games in the AFC, how the seeding stacks up after that, seeing that they would have a shot and feeling better about themselves about not just getting a win, but getting a division win, getting a win against a quality team that's leading the division, all those things. I do think that could kind of spark a roll.
All right. He is Jay Morrison, does a tremendous job covering the Cincinnati Bengals, has for many, many, many years. Now does his work on BengalsTalk.com. You can also hear him on the PD and J, correct? The podcast?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead and plug it, Jay.
Yeah, it's the Growler podcast. So there were multiple shows, and PD and J was the one that we were doing. But now we do the Balds Don't Lie on Tuesday, and then we do the walkout after the games on Sunday. So I'm with Paul there on 3 days a week on podcasts. I'm filling in. He does Who Day Light with Mark Shalafu, and Paul's on vacation this week, so I'm going to jump in on. That's a little bit of a lighter podcast that on the Growler Network, and so I'll be on that on Wednesday answering Bengal fans mailbag questions. So just a lot going on with BengalsTalk.com and the Growler podcast, and always happy to jump on this podcast as well.
And you are always welcome, and it is always greatly, greatly appreciated. Jay Morrison of BengalsTalk.com. You can find all of his material there. You can also follow him on the X at @ByJMorrison. My name is Mike Petralia. I want to thank our great sponsors, Prize Picks and the Game Time app, as well as our great folks at CLNS Media. Until next time, keep that jungle roaring.